You don't have insurance. Okay.
Good afternoon. Welcome to today's media availability on the Emergency Advisory Committee proceedings. We are joined today by Mayor Don Iveson and Interim City Manager Adam Laughlin, who will provide an update, and then we will take questions.
Thanks, Chris, and good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us here today. I'll try to keep myself brief. Today, Council heard an update from administration on the work the city is doing to help rein in COVID-19 cases in Edmonton and how we're working closely with Alberta Health and Alberta Health Services to ensure Edmontonians get the information and support they need to curb the spread of the virus. Adam will elaborate further on the city's specific efforts as he did in our meeting, but the City of Edmonton is doing its best to lead by example in our own buildings and work environments and through the services we provide Edmontonians with, including public transit. In all of these areas, we've enacted enhanced cleaning protocols and tightened restrictions at recreation centers, and we're way ahead on face coverings, for example. I was riding the bus yesterday. I was pleased to see everybody on the bus wearing the face covering. And to support facilities and services beyond the city's immediate control, we are also working with AHS to develop social marketing campaigns that encourage compliance with health measures. And we've also increased the number of community standards and neighborhood branch enforcement teams so that we can better monitor outbreak areas and also support and reinforce the face covering bylaw, which is making a difference. I've also been reaching out to our regional neighbors to ensure we're aligned when it comes to health and safety protocols, because this virus does not stop at municipal borders. And this is a seamless metropolitan area where all of us need to work together to get this thing back under control. The city is working hard to ensure that cases are kept down, but it's crucial that Edmontonians understand that we need their continued help in the fight against COVID-19. So please, be extra diligent in following the Alberta Health Guidelines, including the new voluntary restrictions for the Edmonton Health Zone announced by the province, and get yourself tested if you have any doubts. So thank you, and I'll pass it on to Adam.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Next up, Interim City Manager Adam Laughlin.
Thank you. Good afternoon. For the past month, the progression of the virus in our city has required us to be even more vigilant about our relaunch actions and compliance efforts. We've reevaluated some of our initiatives and reconfirmed that our approaches are robust enough to respond to the potential of a second wave. The social impacts of the pandemic continue to be a priority, particularly those that relate to the vulnerable populations. With the Edmonton zone now on enhanced status, our situation is a serious wake-up call about what it means to be responsible. Being vigilant about practicing public health measures has consequences for individuals, families, and our community. The new voluntary health measures are the rules by which the city will protect the safety of employees and Edmontonians. The city has examined ways it can improve the safety of our service delivery. Some of these actions are being implemented immediately, while others are in the planning stages. This includes tightening restrictions related to the services at rec centers. Examples include no spectator access in areas without designated spectator seating, such as field houses, gyms, and most pools. Where controlled spectator areas exist, 25% of the regular seating capacity is allowed. Reduce capacity for other indoor booking rentals, and increase security and crowd monitoring at facilities to ensure adherence to the protocols. For Edmonton Transit, the restrictions include adjustments to service levels, including school service to support physical distancing and gathering restrictions, offering low-income transit pass users new purchase opportunities to reduce the need for in-person contact, and same-day cleaning and disinfecting of bus shelters located near schools where we are notified of a school outbreak. The number of city enforcement teams have been increased to allow targeted monitoring in outbreak areas and increased monitoring of the face covering bylaw. We are now supporting Alberta Health Services in developing language and cultural communications that engage local communities. That includes the development of a social marketing campaign. Roughly 30% of the city's workforce currently works from home. Our multi-phase plan for reintegration of employees is being reviewed. Return to work will not proceed until the city is designated as open for at least 2 consecutive weeks. Until then, working from home will be reinforced for all employees who can do so. We've activated a series of actions that will provide temporary and bridge accommodation for vulnerable Edmontonians. Our short-term goal is to ensure the safe and dignified transition of individuals out of the cold and into spaces that provide temporary care and support. Boyle Street Community Services will administer a city program that provides immediate housing options for homeless individuals living in the Light Horse Park. Camp organizers have announced that they intend to wind down the camp by October 18th. Until the end of October, the Boyle Street Outreach Team will continue to assess the housing needs of the individuals on site and offer bridge housing to camp occupants. Following the completion of this process, the city will enforce the illegal camping provision of the Parkland bylaw and evict remaining campers. Those who have not voluntarily relocated or who are not suitable candidates for hotel accommodation will be supported with a transfer to the 24/7 temporary pandemic accommodation at the Edmonton Convention Centre. At Camp Pekawewin, we are working with organizers to ensure appropriate alternatives, like the Edmonton Convention Centre, are accessible, inclusive, and to bring additional bridge housing capacity online to meet the needs of those on site. We continue to work with organizers to ensure that the safety of those on site. An end date of the camp is linked to the activation and full operational setup of the pandemic accommodations. From October 30th of this year to March of next year, the Edmonton Convention Centre will be used for that temporary pandemic accommodation. Preparations are underway for opening on October 30th. We are working with community partners to establish logistics and guidelines for operations. We will continue to scale up week by week after October 30th to reach the necessary capacity. Safety is paramount. We have been in discussions with EPS to develop plans for ensuring public safety in the vicinity of the convention centre. Again, I would stress to Edmontonians, although voluntary, I would ask everybody to exercise the required vigilance around following the restrictions that are currently in place and making sure that they're doing their part to reduce the risk of spread. With that, available to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. We have 4 members of the media joining us today. And we're going to start with Vinesh Pratap from Global TV.
So, Adam, can we just talk about the camp in Rossdale? A lot of residents might be wondering how come the city won't put an end date on the camp? And can you talk to us about the challenges with that? And then with that question, I'd like to get both an administrative as well as a political response as well.
Thanks, Vinesh. So I think it's been a unique situation. We haven't experienced something like this before in terms of a protest situation turning into essentially what we have out there today. And through the discussions with the camp organizers and the folks that are at the site, it was obvious that there was a concern related to access to the necessary supports for folks in the situation, or sleeping rough or living rough. And so the measures that we've taken with the setup of the temporary pandemic accommodations provides an avenue to be able to support those individuals. In terms of a specific date, tough to set that because it requires the services to be activated at the convention center, and as we've said, we're working very hard to make sure that that's set up as quickly as possible, and so that we can accommodate a peaceful transition into that facility, working with the organizers and with the agencies that are queued up to support us in that effort.
So the camp initially stood up partly in response to the closure of the Expo Center when the province and agencies no longer saw a need or a rationale during the warmer season. We knew then and we know now that other measures were going to be needed for folks. And we've seen through the outbreaks more recently in the shelters and the proliferation of folks experiencing homelessness because of the economic circumstances, that action is even yet more urgently needed. And so the camp organizers have presented many demands to the city, but the most urgent and the one that has resonated strongly with this city for more than a decade is a desire to make sure that no Edmontonian goes without suitable housing. And so to that end, we are moving heaven and earth to meet that need out in front of the federal government's increasing response to this with the $1 billion we've secured, plus the National Housing Strategy and now their throne speech commitment, and working to bring the province along. And early conversations in response to the letter sent last week have been positive and encouraging. So I think that, you know, the camp organizers have expressed some skepticism about the city's commitment to safe and dignified housing. And so clearly the pandemic accommodation at the conference center is to give us time to muster the response from all orders of government and our society that they have been demanding from the city. So I have turned and taken those calls forth along with other mayors who have similar encampments making similar demands, again with which we agree and for which we've been advocating for solutions since long before the pandemic. But fundamentally, when I went down to the camp and at the invitation of one of the elders a couple of weeks ago, and actually talked to people about what they needed, the people on the ground, not necessarily what's coming through formally in terms of demands, but what did the human beings there need? And they needed their city to house them, to give them shelter, and to make sure that that shelter, both short-term at the conference center and longer term in the bridge housing and the supportive housing, needed to be safe, needed to meet their mental health challenges, needed to support them in recovering from their addictions, and that was the most urgent need. And so we are committed to meeting those needs with wraparound services, with agency partners who do awesome work as quickly as we can. And I think that as challenging as it has been, you know, I understand from one of the other reports, there are 46 camps in our parks. And this one and the one in Strathcona have made quite visible a problem and an issue that we have been trying to solve for a long time now. And the conditions now finally seem right to resolve it. And so it has been challenging and it has created stress, but it will lead to change.
Dinesh, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, just a completely different topic. You brought up the winters and patios. What do you want to see the city do to accommodate the hospitality industry through the next 6 months here?
Well, you know, there have been a lot of creative moves in other jurisdictions that people have been pointing out to and sharing with us. The city is also a leader around thinking about winter city approaches to support hospitality and four-season outdoor activity. And we've got some incredibly creative businesses, and watching our entrepreneurs and our retailers and our hospitality folks pivot through the first 6 months of this pandemic. And I'm really proud of the way the city has worked with them to try to accommodate expansion of patios, closure of lanes, all the things that were necessary to support those businesses through the summer. I expect no less for the winter, though the challenges are more complicated. But the city, I understand, is certainly willing to extend patios where that's straightforward, also willing to be flexible around allowing folks to put tables and chairs out as long as they don't get in the way of pedestrians and create distancing issues, and also on a case-by-case basis to evaluate proposals like the one from the cafe on 124th Street And their particular first draft of their idea was going to create implications for traffic and for snow removal and potentially safety. And so those are legitimate trade-offs the city has to manage. But my expectation for that site and all the others, and I appreciated administration's answers today to the questions, is to find the best creative solution that we can. Whether it's utilizing other roadway space that doesn't have those snow removal or safety implications, or whether it's using park space in partnership with other area businesses, perhaps on a rotating basis. The point is, we need to be as creative and possibly more creative even than we were for the first part of this pandemic to help those struggling businesses through this winter, which is going to be long for all of us, but it's going to be especially tough for those entrepreneurs, and they need every ounce of support their city can give them.
Thank you, Vinesh. Next up, we'll go to the media that's joining us virtually. We'll start with Carly Robinson from City TV.
Hi there. This might be more for Adam, but I was looking for some clarity on those who don't, from the camp, who don't meet the threshold for a hotel. So if you can talk about what that threshold is and what the other options might look like for those individuals who might not have that access.
Thanks for the question. So those that may not be eligible include those that need additional supports beyond housing. So whether that be from an addiction or mental health perspective, to ensure that they've got the wraparound support services to accommodate. There is also opportunities in terms of other locations where individuals could be supported that include family or others that do provide potential options for folks that are looking for housing. So it's ones that likely need additional supports from a wraparound services perspective. That is some of the things that. Those are some of the supports that take some time to get set up and established and in place to support those individuals.
Carly, do you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, just a bit of a different trend for the mayor. Just with these COVID numbers that keep going up, how frustrating is it to hear? Because it sounds like in terms of public health, we've been doing everything right.
Well, most Edmontonians have been doing an extraordinary job, including our entrepreneurs who've been keeping their staff and patrons and guests safe. And so we're not seeing outbreaks in workplaces and in restaurants and bars, which has been a big problem in a lot of other places. So that's a testament to the commitment of people to the safety of their workers and their customers, which I think is great. Things would be a lot worse without that. I also think that what we're seeing from the data is that, and what we heard from Dr. Sikora today, is the most significant issues we're seeing are among private gatherings and social gatherings where folks are getting together and then not observing the rest of the rules, and young people in particular are overrepresented in that. And there may well be a feeling of invulnerability. The challenge is you can pick it up and asymptomatically bring it home, and then or take it to your workplace and begin community transmission that way. And so it's really important that in all facets of our lives, and it's hard to do this, especially as it's getting colder, people don't want to do it, but in order to prevent a second wave, we have to recommit to the things that got us so strongly through the first phase of this pandemic, which is observing all of these rules. And clearly the province has signaled that if people don't do that on their own accord, then more strict measures will come into place, and they've put guidelines and metrics and triggers in place to cause that to happen. I really hope that doesn't happen, and I hope that we don't see hospital counts rise to trigger that. I hope that we don't see restrictions come in that impair our fragile economy at this point. So it really is in the hands of Edmontonians, but certainly as an employer, the city is going to go above and beyond, and I think many other employers will continue to do that, and that's what's got us through to this point, is looking out for each other, recognizing that our lives and our safety and our economy are all shared concerns, and that our safety and our prosperity is very much in each other's hands.
Thanks, Carly. Next up, Dustin Cook with Post Media.
Hi, thank you. This question is probably for Adam. Adam, we learned about a couple of other housing or shelter options today. Can you provide more details on these, specifically the one using the Commonwealth Stadium pods, and how the city is involved in these options?
Thanks, Dustin. So we've been supporting other shelter agencies throughout this. When we were at the sort of the immediate response to the pandemic, Mustard Seed was utilizing the Kinsman Center and Hope Mission, and that was to support space requirements because of the need for physical distancing. And Hope Mission has been using Central Lions. The Central Lions facility is needing to be accommodated for another use. And so we're working with Hope Mission to look at other potential temporary options. And one of the potentials is some of the spaces in Commonwealth Stadium, but it's very early in the discussions. And as Mr. Smythe, the Deputy City Manager of Citizen Services, said today, we're just trying to work through that. The other one that came up today was an applicant looking for space on the south side to support a warehouse to support potential shelter accommodation as well. And again, that's an application that we're currently reviewing based on the submission that's been provided.
Dustin, do you have a follow-up question?
I do, thank you. So off of that, so those would both be shelters. I'm wondering if there's an update on the bridge housing and the 600 hotel units that the city is hoping to acquire. Is this partnership with Boyle Street a part of that, or are we expecting more details on more hotel units being acquired in the short term?
Thanks, Dustin. It is actually, we've contracted Boyle Street to secure those locations and provide the services to support individuals getting in there to the bridge housing, and that was through an FCM grant, $688,000. So that's the latest on that one, and that we've got Boyle actively working on that, supporting individuals that could be eligible for that bridge housing. So that's the current status on that. In terms of other opportunities, it's still a work in progress, and working with local agencies to just confirm opportunities that are available and things that we could pursue. That coupled with the federal program and seeing if there's an opportunity to potentially accelerate some of that to provide additional bridge housing. We'll also say that a while ago, Council approved the jockey dorms out at, I'm drawing a blank where it is, but the jockey dorms that will be used for bridge housing, and that's coming online very shortly as well.
Thank you, Dustin. Next up from CTV, we have Brett Barrett.
Hi, thank you. This would also be for Adam. LRT compliance is only about 85%. Why is that so much lower than other areas when it comes to wearing masks and other safety precautions?
Thanks for the question. I think part of it is comfort and space as you get on the train. If it's not full, you sort of just relax and take off your mask. I mean, to the human nature of when you're in an environment where it doesn't feel like you're surrounded, you tend to relax. So that's been one thing that our peace officers have noticed, is just sort of a kind of a comfort decision in terms of wearing the face covering, and that's sort of you're on the platform with the face covering, you get on the train with the face covering, and you relax and you take it off, and that's really the compliance issue that we're seeing. So again, it kind of goes to education and awareness and making sure that folks understand that we need to be super vigilant at this time when we're seeing cases rise.
Brett, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I was just going to ask, again, unrelated. With the people staying at Lighthorse Park, what happens if they don't leave by the end of the day Sunday?
Well, the program's already in place. Dustin asked about the bridge housing body of work that's underway with Boyle. So Boyle would continue to work with those folks to get them, as many of them as possible into that bridge housing. And if by the end of the month we're seeing that there's still folks that are there, that we'd be looking at a similar transition with Camp Pekawewin to the convention center. If we continue to see folks beyond that date, then we're going to have to take enforcement actions, and that's something that we don't want to do. But if we can provide this space and the supports that are needed for folks that are in these camps, then that's what we're going to do, and hopefully have a smooth transition with that.
Thank you, Brett. Do we have any other questions online? No? Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Interim City Manager Adam Laughlin and Mayor Don Iveson. And have a great afternoon, everyone.
Hey, Vinesh.